Hello everyone and welcome. In this video I'll be sharing my thoughts on The World Beyond Season 1 and examining why I believe the show failed. There will be spoilers covering the entire season of the show in this video, so please do keep that in mind. Anyway, without further ado, let's begin. In July 2018, legendary show wrecker Scott Gimple announced that another Walking Dead spin-off was in the works, and I'm sure that even the most hardened Walking Dead fans were a bit confused by this announcement. The Walking Dead Season 8 had finished in April of the same year, with the show hemorrhaging viewers throughout the season, with the All-Out War arc receiving less than favourable reviews. In addition, Season 4A of Fear the Walking Dead finished airing in June 2018, and to put it bluntly, that was a complete disaster, and I've already covered Fear's downfall in much more detail in a separate video on this channel. The Walking Dead as a franchise was arguably at its lowest point. Fans had just endured 2 below average seasons of the main show, as well as a poorly thought out crossover which had left its spin-off on life support. I don't know anyone who's excited by the news of yet another Walking Dead spin-off show being announced. If The World Beyond had been announced at the height of The Walking Dead's popularity in the early 2010s, it would have been greeted with elation. But to announce a spin-off show in the summer of 2018, when The Walking Dead had become the show that everyone on the internet liked to joke about no one watching anymore, was bizarre timing to say the least. However, as more information about the show surfaced, its potential became obvious. The show was to be set 10 years after the apocalypse, set largely apart from the rest of the Walking Dead universe, making it easy for newcomers to jump on board. It was also going to be a 2-series limited event with 10 episodes in each season. I've always said that having 16 episodes per season isn't necessary when it comes to The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead. 16 episodes can just make a show feel dragged out and cause them to be bloated with filler. Pacing is something that The Walking Dead has always had an issue with, even during its best seasons. I mean, this old meme which did the rounds during Season 3 of The World Beyond just about sums it up. For the record, I think that Walking Dead's 3rd season is fantastic, but it was apparent even at this point that having 16 episodes was causing the show to grind to a halt at times. In contrast, The World Beyond was only going to be 20 episodes in total. Surely there'd be loads of story to blast through in just 20 episodes, meaning things would have to move along quite quickly. The show was being billed as a 2-season event after all. I mean, events are normally exciting, right? Surely we'd be in for an all-out non-stop roller coaster of a show. Well, sadly, that couldn't be any further from the truth, as we are about to find out now as I explore the show's first problem. In The World Beyond's first episode, the protagonists spend the majority of their time at the university campus sitting around talking. As show premieres go, it's pretty unremarkable. However, I do understand that new characters and plots needed to be set up, so I can somewhat overlook the slow pacing during the opener. The premiere ends with the characters outside the walls of their community, with them about to go on their post-apocalyptic road trip. What dangers would await them on the road ahead? What strange and scary people would they encounter? The period in which the protagonists are on the road during Season 4B and 5A of The Walking Dead is considered by many to be one of the best periods of the show, in part due to the crazy people the protagonists encounter on the way to Alexandria. Okay, the premiere of The World Beyond wasn't great, but its potential was clear to see. It could have been similar to Season 4B and 5A of The Walking Dead, an exciting post-apocalyptic road trip full of danger. Sadly, things didn't turn out that way, as next to nothing really happens for much of the first season. In Episode 2 of The World Beyond, the protagonists arrive at a tyre yard. In Episode 3, they were still at the same tyre yard. In Episode 4, they visit an abandoned school. And in Episode 5, they visit some random buildings in order to scavenge some material to build a makeshift boat. It's not until Episode 6 that the protagonists actually encounter other humans on the road in the form of Percy and his uncle Tony. The stranger danger concept, which is a key staple of nearly every post-apocalyptic show, is almost completely absent in The World Beyond. And as such, the road trip that the kids go on loses much of the tension that would have been present had this been included. Hell, Percy and his uncle Tony turn out to be nice people anyway, which completely undermines their appearance. Now, some will argue that doing away with other survivors isn't necessarily a bad thing. Maybe this would allow the show to focus all its efforts on the protagonist versus the undead. Maybe instead The World Beyond would be a full horror zombie experience. Well, again, that doesn't turn out to be the case either, because walkers are only an afterthought in this show, second to the dreaded flashbacks. In total, I counted there are 58 flashbacks in this season of The World Beyond. That's an average of 5.8 per episode, with episode 6 being the only episode without flashbacks, and episode 8 being the worst offender with a whopping 11. And there may actually be more than 11 flashbacks in episode 8 because episode 8 has flashbacks within flashbacks, And there may actually be more than 58 in total throughout the entire season, as I quickly skimmed through the episodes again when counting, but 58 is what I counted, and these can range anywhere from a couple of seconds long to 5 minutes. And just to be clear, by flashback I mean any scene that cuts away from the present to show something that has already happened in the past. Now, before I delve into why I feel the overuse of flashbacks prevented the show from building up any real momentum, I just want to clarify that flashbacks themselves aren't a bad idea when used correctly. Season 1 of Westworld, for example, makes great use of flashbacks and multiple timelines, and part of the fun of watching that show is working out how everything ties together. However, The World Beyond is deluding itself if it thinks it's anywhere near as clever as the first season of Westworld. There's no payoff from all the flashbacks in The World Beyond. Most of them just feel like padding, and the rest just feel like they were included as a ham-fisted attempt to try and make viewers care for the characters. The majority of the episodes this season all follow the same stale formula. The protagonists in the present roam around doing tedious menial tasks, whilst flashbacks focused on one specific member of the group are inserted into each episode. Episode 2 is the Felix flashback episode. We learn about his father rejecting him due to his homosexuality. Episode 3 is the Silas flashback episode, as we see him do something horrific in the past, although what it is isn't actually elaborated on until episode 8, so actually Silas gets 2 flashbacks episodes about the same bloody thing. Episode 4 is the Iris flashback episode. We see scenes of her with her dad before he left to join the Civic Republic. Episode 5 is the Elton flashback episode, as we see him lose his parents and then travel to the university campus. Episode 7 is the Huck flashback episode. We see her history in the military as she dealt with the Walker outbreak. If you still don't believe me that nearly all the episodes of this show are identical, have a look at Amazon UK's episode descriptions for episode 2 and 3. Episode 2, the group adjusts to outside life. Felix confronts his past. Episode 3, danger surrounds the group. Silas faces his past. It's pretty much exactly the same structure, just with a different character getting flashbacks. You would think that a show which is only 20 episodes long would try to hit the ground running and do as much as it could during its limited runtime, but The World Beyond's first season spends so long trapped in its character's past, obsessed with showing us flashback after flashback, that it ends up slowing down everything happening in the present to a crawl. I mean, episode 8 is a prime example. For the first 10 to 15 minutes, the episode did a good job in building up some momentum. At first I didn't mind the Silas flashbacks, but then they just kept going on and on and on and on and on. Then there were even flashbacks in the flashbacks, and there was even a flashback that was shown twice in the same episode. They literally showed the same flashback twice within the space of 15 minutes. Unbelievable. When done correctly, flashbacks are a great tool at filling in the gaps of a character's past. For example, the flashbacks in Season 2 Episode 1 of The Mandalorian, which detail how Cobb Vanth acquired Fett's armour, are fantastic. It gets the audience up to speed with what's going on, whilst also managing to be exciting to watch. However, when flashbacks are as overdone as they are in The World Beyond, they just appear predictable and cheap. I've already said what I'm about to say in a previous video I made when covering one of the individual episodes of The World Beyond, so apologies if you've already heard me say this, but flashbacks do not automatically equal character development. It seems as if the writers of The World Beyond thought that by giving every character a tragic backstory and then shoving it down our throats constantly, that would be enough for us to like them and ignore how dull they are and the show is during its present day setting. However, I find the constant interruptions from the characters' past actually make them less likeable. The characters can't do anything without their awful past being shoved in our faces, and as a result they don't seem like real people. Instead they just seem like caricatures written by a committee. I don't know why The World Beyond feels the need to use flashbacks to explain everything when there are other better ways of getting a point across. I mean, let's use Daryl Dixon from The Walking Dead as a quick comparison. This is a guy who had a bad childhood, he has scars on his back, and it's revealed through conversations that he has with his brother Mel and fellow survivor Beth that his dad used to abuse him. That's enough for me to work out the gaps in his backstory. I can imagine the rest of the details. The Walking Dead didn't feel the need to then show 10 flashbacks of Daryl being beaten by his dad. Instead, it had his past be revealed naturally via a conversation, which was the better option to take. It was genuinely upsetting seeing Mel's reaction to Daryl's scars and realising what his brother had been through. However, by the time episode 5 of The World Beyond came around, with it being Elton's turn for his past to be looked into, it was so predictable and formulaic by that point that I felt nothing when watching his dragged out backstory. And this is a shame because his backstory is pretty tragic, but halfway into The World Beyond it already felt like the show was just ticking the boxes. I didn't care about his past because I'd become so bored with the constant flashbacks. Maybe if The World Beyond focused on making its characters more interesting in the present and actually giving them more exciting things to do than just hoping to get by on its filler scene set in the past, the show would have ended up being a better product. Sadly though, this show does have more problems than just its over-reliance on flashbacks, with its dialogue also being a sore point. The dialogue in The World Beyond is, to put it simply, atrocious. I'm talking Fear the Walking Dead Season 4 and 5 levels of bad. Here are some examples of the awful lines featured in the show. I'm living for me, in the now, searching for my truth. She said something about our mistakes shouldn't have to follow us. We can't change the things we've done, but we can find the strength to carry the truth for everyone else so they don't have to. There's no point trying to outrun pain. It will sit patiently and wait until you're too tired to run. I mean, honestly, what the hell? It's like all the dialogue is written in Chinese proverbs. Characters constantly thinking they are more clever than they actually are, just like a certain someone. No one converses like human beings on this show, which again is the same problem that Fear had when Morgan was spouting his philosophical bullshit non-stop when he crossed over. Perhaps the worst offender of all, and the phrase which has come synonymous with the show, is the night the sky fell, a phrase used by the protagonist to refer to the end of the world and the start of the Walker outbreak. A phrase so childish that it just seems laughable coming out of the mouth of Felix, a grown man. At first I thought this phrase was just something Hope and Iris said, but everyone says it and there's no explanation as to why. I honestly cannot believe that someone thought that this was a good turn of phrase to use to describe the end of the world. Not only does the sky falling have no relation whatsoever to the undead plague, it also makes light of the situation. It's far too silly a name to use when describing something so serious. It would be like me calling World War II Shooty Shooty Bang Bang II. The awful dialogue is only compounded by the show's awful direction. There's a scene in the third episode, The Tiger and the Lamb, in which Iris and Hope are fighting walkers, and Iris is doing a voiceover reciting the poem after which the episode is named, in some odd attempt to make it seem like the show has some deeper, grandiose meaning. I explored what I think this poem means during my video review of episode 2, but regardless of what it does actually mean, it just comes off as so damn cringeworthy. Strangely, this scene made me think of the episode from The Simpsons where Grandpa is taking the orange eating class and he shouts at Mole Man to eat the damn orange. Because when watching this play out, I turned to Grandpa Simpson and I was just thinking to myself, just shut up and kill the damn walkers. Stop reciting poetry. Stop trying to make this show appear as if it's some kind of high-end intellectual thought piece when it really isn't. Sadly, this isn't the only awful voiceover from Iris to feature in the show. Episode 5 opens with her talking over a shadow puppet show, telling us that once upon a time there was a world with jobs, a world with weekends, but then people died and returned, neither alive or dead, and it's just awful. I mean, a minute into the episode and I was already wishing that I was dead. Anyway, let's talk about the final point that I want to cover. The main plot of The World Beyond is as follows. Hope and Iris' dad has gone to the Civic Republic Research Centre to work on some kind of project for them. Hope and Iris don't trust the Civic Republic due to their secretive nature. The CR have access to helicopters, weapons, won't tell anyone where they're actually based or what they're doing, and wear black fascist-like uniform. They have evil villainous group written all over them. Hope and Iris receive a message from their dad via a fax machine at the university telling them that he isn't safe, which kickstarts their quest to travel to their dad's location. Two of their friends, Silas and Elton, tag along, as do adults Felix and Huck. At the end of The World Beyond's premiere, the protagonists find themselves on the road. The university campus where they'd been staying previously had been destroyed, unbeknownst to them, by the Civic Republic, carried out under CR officer Elizabeth's orders. Elizabeth, however, seems pleased that Hope and Iris have escaped, and throughout the season there are lines of dialogue from her which hint that she is aware of Hope and Iris' journey. In episode 8 it's revealed that Huck is a spy who works for Elizabeth, and in the last 2 episodes it's revealed that Huck sent the message to Hope and Iris in episode 1 pretending to be their dad. She wanted to get Hope on the road because Hope is the asset or some shit. You all following so far? Okay, so it's basically explained very badly in episode 10 and of course via flashbacks that Hope is some kind of kid genius. There's a flashback of her as a kid taking apart a computer and putting it back together again to illustrate this. I mean, yeah, okay, it's pretty impressive. I couldn't do that, but that doesn't make her Stephen Hawking, does it? Anyway, we learn that basically the entire events of this whole season were orchestrated by the Civic Republic. Elizabeth wanted Hope to get some life experience and see the world for what it really is. She wanted Hope to experience a tough time so it would make her realise how important the Civic Republic's work was, which in turn would convince her to join them. Yeah, so the entire convoluted mess of a story that is this season only exists because Elizabeth wants Hope to realise that the world is bad and that life is hard, so she decides to join her. What the actual bloody hell kind of reasoning is this? The Civic Republic have a community of 200,000 according to Elizabeth. They have an army, helicopters, they wiped out a university campus which housed 10,000 people with ease. Why didn't they just take Hope with them during the first 5 minutes of the opening episode? Why go through with such a needlessly complex plan when they could have just taken her from the start? They could have taken her to the research centre, told her of her importance there, and then tried to convince her to help them. But instead they deceived her and they put her and her friends in danger. If Hope is supposedly this incredible asset, if Hope is this child genius which will help the Civic Republic with some vital piece of research, why would they risk letting such an asset go on a road trip and fight the undead, rather than, just taking her from the get-go in a safe manner? It's a bullshit twist which only serves to make the Civic Republic, the group which this season was trying to build up as this menacing organisation, seem like complete and utter morons. Here's an idea for you. Hope was clearly upset when her dad left to join the Civic Republic. She didn't want him to go. Her entire mission this season was to get to him. So why didn't the Civic Republic just ask her to come with them to see her dad? She would have probably said yes. But nope, instead they devised some stupid plan to send her halfway across the country in the hope that she learnt a lesson. Absolutely ridiculous. If this is how the Civic Republic act, if this is indicative of their kind of decision making, I have no idea how they've stayed around for so long. As for the Civic Republic themselves, well, we learned really next to nothing about them this season. The World Beyond has been teased as the show which would finally bridge the gaps between all the Walking Dead shows. The CR have been a feature of the Walking Dead universe since Season 8 of The Walking Dead and Season 5 of Fear the Walking Dead. They've been a part of The Walking Dead for over 3 years now, and we still know next to nothing about them. The potential to learn about the CR was a big reason why many of the Walking Dead fans decided to watch The World Beyond. They wanted answers to this long drawn out mystery that was supposed to connect all the Walking Dead shows. But what they got was just more questions and no answers. Scott Gimple has milked the CR cow to death, so much so that I don't give a shit what they're up to anymore. He seems to think that he's some kind of genius who is creating a shared universe to rival the MCU, when in fact all he's doing is agitating fans of all the Walking Dead shows by continually referencing a group whose purpose still hasn't yet been explained. And with how the ending to The World Beyond Season 1 turned out, I don't have much hope that this continuous Civic Republic dick teasing will be worth it anyway. Dragging out the Civic Republic for years is just going to result in them being a massive disappointment when the Walking Dead universe does finally reveal what they are actually up to. The World Beyond Season 1 is an absolute disaster. You would think that a show which is only 20 episodes long would move at a brisk pace, but this show moves slower than my granddad driving his car. The stylistic choices are terrible, constant flashbacks prevent the show from ever building up any momentum and cause The World Beyond to become predictable after just a couple of episodes. The dialogue seems to have been written by the same writers responsible for Fear the Walking Dead Season 4 and 5, the phrases used by the characters are childish, and there are far too many cliche-ridden conversations. Finally, the overarching plot and the reasoning behind why the characters go on their journey is nonsensical and pointless. These 10 episodes of The World Beyond are just an absolute waste of time, but it didn't need to be. The World Beyond didn't have any baggage coming into this season. It didn't have to deal with any crossover characters like Fear did in Season 4, it could have been anything it wanted. It could have been a Mandalorian-esque adventure of the week type show, with characters on the road having new adventures every week, encountering new dangers as they headed towards the CR lab, but sadly it chose to be Fear the Walking Dead Season 4 and 5 2.0. It chose to undermine its character's intelligence by having its entire season only serve to set up some last minute twist which didn't land at all. It chose to have constant flashbacks which bored viewers to death. It chose mediocrity, and with the show receiving a record low number of viewers for any Walking Dead show, as well as scathing reviews, The World Beyond got exactly what it deserves. Season 1 of The World Beyond is a colossal failure, and it's one that you should avoid at all costs.